Follow the Path. The Bears Grove is adult-level discussion of role-playing as a storytelling art at samchupmedia.com.
Hello and welcome to another Bears Grove podcast. Today on the program, we're going to talk a little bit about the ecology of dungeons, okay? A popular topic in terms of dungeons. Dungeons are very, amazing places for a lot of reasons. One of them being that stories are easily set there in the terms of, you have a set goal, you have a number of obstacles, and it's something everybody sort of remembers and appreciates. It boils everything down to a very simple set of concepts that even a beginner can deal with, and so it's popular, and that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I like it. I like having a dungeon every so often. I enjoy it. But for me, in order to really enjoy it, I have to know from a GMing standpoint what place this place has. And I'm always thinking about the kind of experiences we have in a dungeon, what kind of things go on that makes a dungeon, but how can we make that also make sense, right? So if you think about where you live right now in your own house, there are people in the world who, sometimes put up with broken aspects of their home. They have a staircase that doesn't quite work, or they have a door that just always sticks. What we're talking about with a dungeon is, people who move into a dungeon and they are like putting up with the fact that maybe there's a trap nearby, okay, and that trap is set up to kill somebody. You ask yourself, well, how long are they going to put up with that? Probably not too terribly long, because all it will take is one bad night of drinking to wander into that area and get your head cut off, or whatever, or fall down a pit, and it's a pain. It's a pain in the ass. So, or in the head, as this case may be. So you have to think about that sort of concept of what that boils down to is, how logical is it that there are areas in someone's living space which are really set up to kill people? And technically that could happen, but you do need to think about the fact that that's not very healthy of an environment. So ask yourself, how can I set up these kind of struggles, these kind of challenges in my games without making it so weirdly set up? Now, there is a way around all this, and that is what I like to call the graduation exercise. At tremendous expense, a wizard has decided to test his children, his child or his children, with knowledge, an active experience. So he sets up a situation where there are like these artifact keys that are powerful, that will last forever. And he spreads these keys out across the world, and then he tells his kids, okay, kids, if you want to inherit my position as Grand Wizard, you're going to need to go find these artifacts, bring them to a dungeon area that I have created just for this purpose, which is a test to see if you're worthy. And I've spared no expense. I've spared no expense, and now you are going to be tested to the nth degree. Okay, and that at that point you are completely off the hook for just about any of these questions, because the whole point is the wizard has spent god-awful sums of cash and pulled in favors and used his magic and basically, maybe even asked some of his high-level friends to help him do this dungeon. And the whole thing is one massive puzzle after encounter. You can utilize summoning spells to get the monsters in there. They don't leave poop. This is like the easiest way around all of these questions, right? But you can only do it really once, because after that one time, your player's going to look at you and go, "Really? Another wizard challenging his children? Oh, please." Okay, so we're putting that aside. That's a lot of fun. You can do that and enjoy it, and don't worry about any of these issues. But if you are interested in figuring out a way to make a dungeon happen that is more realistic, continue on with me here. So you have to think about in terms of a dungeon is a place to live. A dungeon is a environment. And when you have living creatures, usually, and I'm going to put usually there because we're talking about magic here, but when you have living creatures, you got a bunch of different needs there. You've got to find a place to get food, or to store food. You have to have a source of water. You have to have a place for them to all go to the bathroom. You have to have a place for them to raise their children. You have to have a place for them to have their personal time. You have to have a place where they train on the weapons that they carry. And if they're wizards or shaman or clerics, they have to have temples for clerics. They have to have like magical areas for shaman, and they have to have training zones for archers and warriors of various kinds. So all of these things are important. Add on to that things like smithy, a mining area, a place for holding your prisoners, a place for holding livestock, a place for doing any kind of study. If you've got monsters that have an interest in the arts or an interest in books, you have to have a place for that. So what I've already described is a laundry list of all the things you're going to need to put in your dungeon. However, we are not blind to the fact that, there is such a thing as impact to the environment. And so, as part of the, fantasy environmental protection organization, we have to go in there and say, okay, what happens as a result of this one particular community living in one area? How does it impact the world around them? And given their nature, the way that they are, how are those impacts going to affect other people? Even ants, by the way, they self-organize for the most part, but they take care of their poop, and they take care of their, they harvest, some of them wrangle aphids and so forth. So, like, we're not talking about like a totally off the wall concept, even for a supposedly non-intelligent group of people. So, in addition to the situations where you have an ecological impact on the area, you also have a political, social, emotional impact on the area. And this is where we start to think about the concept of an ecosystem, because you have, in every ecosystem, you have predators, you have high-end predators who are the top of the chain, and you have a number of, middle ground predators who are, they're not above a little bit of omnivoring from here and there. And then you have the middle of the road folks, the omnivores, and then you have the scavengers who clean out the trash, literally. And so you got to think in terms of what kind of ecological niche. And believe me, I understand. I am simplifying beyond all reason when I'm talking about these broad categories. I know that it's not that easy in real life. But I'm just trying to get you to start thinking about, okay, so who is, like, let's say you choose a group of people like lizard kind, okay? That species has a very specific footprint. And we can easily come up with all of the things that I just finished talking about with the lizard kind. Okay, we can say, you can easily visualize a chamber where they have their eggs. You can easily visualize a chamber where they raise their young, a chamber where they all sleep together or near each other. Maybe the leaders have their own chambers. They have to figure out a way to protect their warren. So they'll have a system of patrols, or they'll have guards who are stationed at certain areas. One thing about lizard kind is that they can kind of go into a hibernation state to a certain extent and just sit there and not have to worry too much about moving around, but be mindful of what's going on around them. And that's pretty potent as a concept. So if they decide to have like a alarm gong nearby them, you could just sit one lizard kind at the front of every entrance tunnel, and you've got yourself an alarm system for the most part. And all they'd have to do is rotate out like every 8 to 12 hours, and you've got it. You're fine. Of course, they would also have to, if they have a very intelligent leader, they're going to have situations where they practice, what if adventurers come this way? What do we do? How do we organize ourselves? But even if they don't, they'll have the natural instincts to do that kind of thing. So you have to also think about their organization, in that situation. Are they share goods? Do they all take all their treasures and everything and give it to the chief? What happens there? So you have that, and then you have that would be like the middle of the road omnivores, right? Like they're the most numerous, and they have this, they're set up in that area. And then you have the people who showed up after they started living there. Maybe they are one level down, and maybe they discovered that some humans a long time ago started a mine here and left. So they move into the mine just below the caverns that the lizards were in. But this mine is kind of crappy in the sense that, when you go in D&D, it seems like, everybody mines in a horizontal fashion, but for the most part, that's not always what happens. And in fact, in real life, what happens is people tend to mine straight down. So we have to think about that. At any rate, I am at the end of my time today. We will continue this ecological adventure in the future. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you have a wonderful day and sweet dreams when you get them.